Well, it's the end of the year, and yeah, I kind of just want one last video where I talk about things to, um, yeah, I just kind of want to put one of those videos out and, you know, hope it goes well, and yeah, just kind of talk about the year overall. I've got a cup of tea with me, Twinings Irish Blend tea. Um, yeah, I guess I should just talk about how the year went. I would say overall the year went really well. I was really creative. I was able to express a lot more than I have been previously capable of, but I realized I want to do some stuff for the future where, like, it requires me to change some things, acquire some things. Like, I will be getting an acoustic guitar and stringing it to baritone, give it some maybe not quite baritone. I think I'll give it 13s or 14s, but the moral of the story is it's gonna be either baritone or C tuning, and yeah, I'm gonna get something with a really good sound, and that'll be a big part of my music in the future. And um yeah, I just want to focus on adding things to my music, adding layers to my music, and yeah, I think I'm comfortable with the kind of format I have for songs now, longer songs, and um overall as a general product of this consistency, I'll definitely be able to deliver a more consistent and a better sound. Um, Aside from music, though, I've got a record coming out on New Year's called Trappoleria, and it's an electronic album, and I haven't done one of those in a very long time, and it's very ambiental, it's very electronica, very down-tempo stuff, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's not perfect, but it's gonna be a while before I do an album like that, and I hope it is enjoyed. And that's the best I can really hope for an album like that. But I have some records that need to come out. I'm kind of behind on my release scheduling, so I can just focus on getting better. Maybe I've taken a break these past couple of days with playing guitar, but yeah, I think it's really important, for me to convey that I'm still working on things and I'm not stagnating, and you know, I'm always thinking of things to write songs about, or kind of go in a sort of direction I'm comfortable with. But yeah, I haven't played guitar the past couple days at all. I've been kind of taking a couple day break, and I mean, I think that's okay. I don't feel burnt out at all from it, but um, I've played a lot of guitar this year. I've had a lot of fun, and yeah, I think over the next couple, however many days, when I'm on a holiday, I'll have access to guitar, and I'll be able to think of things, and I'll be able to play. And usually when I go on a holiday and I come back, I'm ripe with ideas, and I hope this is no different. But it'll be the last of the 2025 subset of Cascade Records. It'll be recorded in early 2026. I'm not sure when it'll come out, but yeah. And then I'm going to get the new guitar, and I am going to tune it. I'm going to play it a lot, and I'm going to get a feel for it, and that'll subsequently become my new sound. Ideally, I find that a lot of the music I really like, and a lot of the music that sounds really good, comes from lower tunings, and that's just all I can hope for. That I find a sound that clicks, and I can find the sonic textures of darkness and lyrical textures that are engraved in the woe begone and the, you know, the melancholic. I hope that resonates, I hope that sticks, and I hope people see the vision that I see, right? But, I mean, it also works a lot better, you know, if it's just guitar and vocals, to have a lower tuning, because, you know, getting that low sound kind of it doesn't replace, but it definitely, ameliorates the lack of a bass. There's a lot of things you can do. I'm gonna start putting more solos in my music. I need to find a better way to record. I need to find a more, practical recording method, and it's really hard to do that with, like, chorded stuff. It's hard to not have the chords obstruct your playing, and with Bluetooth stuff there's delay. That's why like some of the solos on my records, they don't sound quite right because they were recorded using Bluetooth, but I did the best I can. But yeah, so that's going forward with my music. And you know, Wretch, Dyad, Wretch, Dyad. What the hell are these? Solaris. There's that record. Fuck, there's more. I have more records that need to come out. I just don't know the names of them off the top of my head. But Trappoleria is coming out, and yeah, I'm just really pleased with the state of things in Cascade World. I've put out the best records that I've put out this year. Like, the best records that I have put out have been put out this year, with some minor exceptions. Some albums in the past, the only reason my albums in the past ever worked and were deemed good by the people I know is because they were lightning in a bottle. Purely coincidental. I've evolved so much as a songwriter, and you can see a lot of the sonic textures in my music, and a lot of the things I'm trying to do heavily emulate a planned structure, and they heavily emulate a sort of attentiveness and love and care. I am not a great songwriter. I'm not a great guitar player. I'm not a brilliant musician. I'm not even a good musician. I'm not even a musician at all. But what I have, and what will always be consistently true, is that I love music. And I'm not a music nerd. I don't have some esoteric knowledge. I don't post a lot of music, just discussion videos about the music that I like, because I have really lukewarm takes. I like bands on a spectrum of popularity. I like obscure bands, and I like popular bands, but I don't have any brilliant takes or analyzations of popular music or anything that can't be explained in better terms by somebody else, and that's okay, right? And that's okay with me. I do want to talk more language on my videos, but I want to make attentive and detail-rich videos about language, because while I am of all the things I like, I am most versed in language. Like, I can make a language video about basically, I can make videos about phonology, I can make videos about, orthography, I can make videos about culture and language, and I can talk about the change of language over time, like the change of the language morphology in, like, Spanish, how the C with the cedilla becomes that Z sound, a S, and then that becomes th in Spanish. I can make those kind of non-standard videos. I can talk about Galician Portuguese, right? I can talk about these weird dialects and medieval dialects of Spanish because I know what I'm talking about, right? But if I'm going to do that, I need to write scripts, and it's such a laborious thing, but I have ardor for language, so I'm willing to do that, but the only problem is I'm going to need to write scripts for videos and rehearse them, because I can't, I'm not a talented orator, I'm not a talented raconteur, I'm not a talented speaker. My English is really funky, my English is really weird, but yeah, I don't have the panache to sort of make those things happen. And like I said, if I'm talking about language, there's going to be a lot of shit that just isn't new and can be better explained by other people. Like, if I would never make a video about, like, verb conjugations. I think I would make phonology videos, but, like, I would talk about the pronunciation of letters in a way that is better explained. Like, a lot of Spanish-speaking, or a lot of Spanish learning materials, they don't explain Spanish phonology, and I would do it on a dialectical scale, but I would focus on Castellano. But yeah, I would talk about the phenomenons of phonology, so I'd talk about schismo, which is where the j sound becomes a sh. I would talk about syllabification, I would talk about esdrújula, I would talk about jana, I'd talk about aguda, and, you know, these terms exist in other languages. I would talk about meter. I think that's really important. I think I was talking to my friend about Portuguese. Like, I would love to make a video about Portuguese and Portugal Portuguese, because Portugal Portuguese is probably going to become one of the more obscure dialects in the next few hundred of years, and the phonology will be more standardized to be like Brazilian. But the like, I'm a, like, modern phonological conservative, and I'm really big on, you know, preserving how a language sounds in the modern age, but these natural changes, if they're going to happen and they're natural, I have to be okay with that, and I am absolutely okay with that. But yeah, I would love to make a video about Portugal Portuguese phonology, and, you know, vocabulary, and think about the subjunctive, and yeah, I would love to make definitive videos. Like, there are some things about Portuguese I don't understand in the subjunctive, there are some things about French in the subjunctive I don't understand, like, is it ainsi, ainsi? One of those. There's a not a preposition. There's a conjunction in French that uses the subjunctive after, and a lot of that stuff isn't clear to me. I just know it. I would know the word if I saw it. But yeah, explaining the subjunctive. The subjunctive in Spanish is really streamlined because of AR, ER, IR verb endings, but with French it's not that logical because there isn't that standardized, you know. I know the subjunctive when I see it because I'm conditioned to, but to me it just doesn't make as much sense as, like, Spanish is, and Portuguese, and these languages, they're really separate, but I like individual things about them, I like individual things about them, you know. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard somebody talking, but yeah, I like some things about these languages individually more than others. So, like, I like the phonology in Portuguese because the syllabification just makes so much sense. Like, instead of you know, ser becoming, like, so there's fui, or yeah, fui in Spanish, or like what the hell am I gonna, what the hell is it? So it's es in Spanish. Es becomes seja, or es becomes sea in the subjunctive, but I just like the breakup of the vowels in Portuguese, where the it becomes seja, right? And I just like that. But in the same realm, I think the Portuguese written phonology is really inconsistent when compared to Spanish. I think that's what makes Spanish so easy to learn, is because it's such a streamlined writing system. Like, and the little differences in like intervocalic consonants, they can be pretty much shrugged off if you pronounce them as their what's the word, like, I don't know the word to start off a syllable, right? If it's at the oh shit, there's a word for it. I forget the word. There's the nucleus, and then there's the, oh, hold on, I'm gonna look this up. The onset, that's the word I was looking for. Onset nucleus coda. Yeah, like if the onset sound is so like the V in Spanish is a b, but if it's intervocalic, it becomes a v, right? The buzz of the lips. I think that's really simple to understand. Whereas Portuguese, the X doesn't. The X is kind of confusing. The getting used to the R at the beginning, the onset R. At the beginning of the word, the R being a huh, that's hard to get used to. The double R being a huh, that's really hard to get used to. French's phonology is logical, but it's really tricky. And there are some things that are confusing, like, how do you know it's ale versus aye? Is it guillotine or is it guillotine? It's I don't know. Like, if I know there's a word with a double L in it, I kind of like 50-50 it, except for ale. I know ale is always just that L is there. And I think that has something to do with syllabification. And I think the A is the open, you cut the syllable off there, so the A is the onset and the nucleus. I think that's the right terminology. But, and then the L's, that starts the sound, right? It's really ambiguous, but yeah. So I would love to make videos about phonology. I would love to make videos about vocabulary. I would like to make videos about Latin. I would be incredibly honored to I would be incredibly honored to do a breakdown of a simple Latin text like Commentari de Bello Gallico, and you do a translation, do a video about translation, and do a real-time translation where I use resources, or that would only be if I have to, but yeah, where I'm doing the work right there to see, like, to show how I do translations, but that would just be an if. And yeah, I would love to do something like that for German. Explain articles, explain cases. I could do that for Latin too. I would love to do a simple Hungarian case breakdown. That video would be really interesting. I would love to explain the origin of the Indo-European languages and the Finno-Ugric languages. And you notice I'm talking a lot about Europe because I focus on Europe. I would love to make videos about things like Arabic, but I just don't feel comfortable enough. It's not in my comfort zone. I feel comfortable saying very simple phrases and explaining the alphabet. Like, if someone needs to learn how to read, I am more than capable of explaining how to read the Abjad Arabic. And aside from that, I think that's where my comfort level ends. I would love to explain vowels. I'd love to explain consonants and how consonants are represented with accents. I think a lot of people lose that over time. Like, one accent is used for one thing, like it's a hard "s" sound in Spanish, like the cedilla makes the "c" "s," and in Turkish, I'm pretty sure it makes it a "ch," right? Explaining, oh, the maybe something more, or not as commonly talked about, like the Romanian T with the T with a cedilla makes it a "ts" sound, right? A lot of people, they default to "ch" because it's logical, it makes sense, but yeah, I would love to make videos about that. So, yeah, I really wish I had a mechanism for making gaming videos, but in the same realm, I would want to make a different account or I'd want to have a separate channel for gaming videos because it doesn't really have a place here. Not that I have like a uniformity, my channel's kind of all over the place, but yeah, gaming would definitely be one of the outliers. I would like to make videos about history. I'd love to make videos about history, but I don't think I have enough grasp on the names, and I don't know if I actually published the video where I talked about this, where I talked about macro history and micro history, but, if it's like, I'm going to talk about, Karl Wilhelm, or not Karl Wilhelm, if I'm going to talk about Kaiser Wilhelm and the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe in the 20th century, then I need to talk about people like Karl Luga, and I'm going to need to talk about Franz Josef, and, the demographics in Vienna, and talk about the migration of Jewish people, and a lot of those things, and I would have to use vocabulary that isn't offensive. Not that I ever do mean to offend, but I would need to associate myself with modern terminology that isn't offensive, because a lot of the sources, they use offensive terminology. Like, I'm not stupid, but I also, some things are not exactly clear, and in the same regard, there could be stereotypes that are pointed to that I'm not aware of, so that's a really dangerous game to play, because I want to be authentic, but I also want to keep the content safe. So I would love to make a history video. I would like to make videos about sea combat. I love naval combat. I love big warships. I would love to break down the design of aircraft carriers or battleships, or even just talk about like a small part. Like I could talk about the 16-inch guns on the USS Iowa class, and that would be wonderful to me. I would love to make videos about lesser known battleships. I would love to make videos about pre-dreadnoughts. Something of particular interest to me is the Richelieu class battlecruiser battleships that were employed by the French. I think they're extremely interesting. I would like to talk about the process of deck conversions, right? Make videos about airplanes, talk about how engines work. I would love to make a video about duotine aircraft, because I think French aircraft are really often overlooked because they didn't really keep up with contemporaries in a lot of ways. But just seeing the French Air Force develop over time, very fascinating to see how the designs change, the shift from 7.5, is it 7.5 inch guns? Or not inch, 7.5 millimeter? Yeah, it might be 7.5 inch or 7.5 millimeter machine guns to the Hispano cannons that some of the French aircraft used. And I would love to do a deep dive into, the types of, aircraft and equipment that a lot of these companies were making. Hispano Suiza is a great example. Um, the Mondragon, I think is I think it's the name of a model, but the company that made Mondragon, if it's not the name of the company, they were doing some interesting stuff, selling to a bunch of different countries. Mendike, um, and Mauser, obviously. Colt, obviously Colt. Kalashnikov. Yeah, just a bunch of these weapons brands. They have their feet in so many different things. Lockheed Martin. I would focus just on Lockheed before the merger, but yeah, Lockheed. Lockheed cooperating with Howard. What the hell's his name? Howard Hughes. There we go. The guy that's director. Yeah, cooperating with Howard Hughes and Lockheed making the Shooting Star. I could talk about Messerschmitt. I could talk about the jet engines used. I could talk about the Meteor. Yeah, I could talk about a lot of things, and I would love to do all of these things. And these are kind of like history videos, but if I'm talking about history videos, I want to do it in an academic way. I don't want to be like, hey guys, here's World War One. Franz Josef was, or not Franz Josef, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was killed by Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo. Hold on, Google time. Yeah, never doubt yourself, it was Sarajevo. Good thing I know everything. But then I come into problems where it's like, yeah, Queen Victoria was the Queen of England, and there was Woodrow Wilson. I don't know who was leading France at the time. Bugger all if I know. Yeah, and then I have to talk about things I'd have to, like, learn and compile beyond a surface level, and that's what what Oversimplified does is great, but he has a lot of misinformation, or not a lot, but he has some misinformation in his videos, and it's oversimplified. It's really base level stuff, but yeah, looking into things at a surface level really bothers me. If I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk about animals today, and I'm talking about monarch butterflies, Iaeus, I think it's Iaeus plexippus or some shit like that. Yeah, and I was like, okay, they're arthropods. They do the metamorphosis bullshit, and I was doing a bunch of surface level stuff. It's like, you can just go read about that stuff. If you're gonna make a video, you should explain intricacies. That's why college courses exist, because they go into a more nuance, or I think any good college course can. Even if it's, really brief, you should examine all the things at play, right? So if I were to make a video about World War I would talk about the Agadir crisis, I would talk about the scramble for Africa, I would talk about the rise of anti-Semitism, I would talk about the rise of socialism, I would talk about American economic capabilities greatly expanding. I would talk about the naval arms race. I would talk about, I would talk about the sort of the confusing politics of Austria-Hungary. I would talk about the failed Hungarian Germanification campaign. I would talk about the Romanovs. I would talk about there's just so much to talk about, and it's hard to make these things brief, right? I love a lot of these things, but what do I really know about, some things that I don't have a great grasp on? Like, I know about, it's not fiefdom. There's a word I'm looking for the Ottoman Empire it's not fiefdom, but where they have non-Muslims pay whatever amount of taxes. I talk about the origin of Zionism, and I talk about British collaboration in the what's the name of that? Is it Hejaz? I think it's Hejaz. The Arabian Peninsula. I think it's Hejaz. Oh, that's or is it Najid? No, I think it's Hijaz. Anyway, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I would love to talk about, but I don't know a crazy amount of. Germany, I know, like Germany and France. Aside from some names in France, I know a lot of German names. Germany, Austria, um, kind of Italy, kind of. These are the places I know and love really well, and I think because I like the language and I have read a lot of primary sources, um, I would be able to explain these countries. But when it comes to Bulgaria, what the hell do I know about Bulgaria? Nothing. I know a good about I know a good amount of, you know, historical trivia, things you should know, where the Bulgars come from, the invention of the Cyrillic script. The capital is Sofia now, and there's another city. There's another city. I think it's Debrecen. Hold on, I'll look this up. As soon as I went to look it up, I remembered Plovdiv, and then there's not Debrecen. What? Oh God, I'm gonna have to remember what city or what country Debrecen's in. But yeah, there's some coastal cities, and I know their importance. But yeah, I think Plovdiv used to be the capital of the Bulgars. But yeah, the Slavs, all that stuff. I know in World War II, they were competing with the Romanians over Munitia, or no, not Munitia. Oh God, oh my goodness. Dobruja, yeah. Yeah. So I know that stuff. I know about the IMRO. I think it is the IMRO. But when it comes to World War One, I don't really know, and I know they're a minor power, but it's still really important to know, you know, more intricate details and to have an intimate understanding of the knowledge, right? And I know about the Balkan Wars in the early 1910s, right? I know Bulgaria was doing a lot of crazy shit. I know there was some stuff going on in Greece. I know there was some stuff in Serbia, right? Obviously, Gavrilo Princip was Bosnian, Serbian, right? So that's how all that happened. So yeah, I do know those things, but that's all really like surface level shit. I would talk about more intricate details on why Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire decided to side with Germany, right? I would talk about Italy flipping sides, which is something that's widely known, but the intricate details, you know, are kind of fuzzy. Belgium. I would want to get into Belgium, how the war affected Belgium, and I guess I would explore sentiments, because popular sentiments are really important. But yeah, these types of historical videos really interest me, and for Europe, I have a pretty good understanding, not in finer details. The details depends on the years, like what was going on in Europe from like 300 to 700 is like probably my fuzziest area. The rest I have a big picture understanding, and I would love to learn more. Like, I would love to learn more about Europe as a whole, and I would love to explore Asia more, but I have to be realistic with myself, where, you know, I'm really focused on Europe, and colonization's such a big story that if I focus on Europe, I can learn more about the other places of the world because of colonialism, and I can contextualize, and that's important to me. But yeah, I would love to make a video about Roman history. I would love to make a video about the history of these languages. Honestly, when it comes to history, the history of these languages is probably most important. I would love to make a video about Welsh. I would love to make a video on like in Welsh. I would probably have to do some rewriting and revising of a Welsh script I wrote, but I would love to explore that. One of the Wikipedia articles I have out is on Welsh, on a Welsh dialect called Paliseg, and yeah, I would love to talk about that. How I wrote that article, how I got it published, is a really straightforward. Really straightforward, and yeah. So those kind of videos really interest me. I've been getting really into physics lately. I really like physics, and my biggest downfall is I'm still becoming familiar with a lot of the terminology, but I would love to make educational content. I would like to make videos about phylogeny. I would love to learn more about, radiometric dating, carbon dating. I would love to learn more about these things. I was watching Planet Peterson, and the amount of knowledge he just pulls out is insane to me. And how he knows these processes extremely well, and it caused me to reevaluate my own knowledge and what I know, and then I was very pleased with myself for not being like, well, he probably doesn't really know what he's talking about, or he's just making stuff up. Instead of being outwardly rejective of that knowledge, I was appreciative of it, and looking at him debate like people like flat earthers and whatnot really puts into perspective the kind of culture we have, but it also it introduces me to a lot of it introduces me to a lot of scientific concepts that I'm not aware of. Like, we're talking about, light bending, we're talking about photons, we're talking about really complicated stuff. We're talking about formulas for wavelength, and how we're talking about light refraction, and we're talking about a lot of things in these videos that are really nuanced topics. Like, I'm still becoming familiar with tensors and differentiate manifolds and manifolds in general, and calculating logarithms, calculating tangents, calculating sines, cotangents, cosines, right? And these are all really advanced mathematical concepts. And I'm not solving any equations, but I'm becoming familiar with these concepts, and I think that's a really good thing to do. And I'll never be an expert in the world of science, but I do really love learning things, everything from medicine to mathematics. And I mean, language is a science in a lot of ways. It's a very cognitive science, and it's a cognitive science I hold a very deep love for. But yeah, so I would love to make educational content on a lot of really like surface base level stuff, but there's also that side of me that wants to make deeper videos. Would I love to sit and explain, distance, acceleration, velocity, force, energy in ohms, energy in ohms, amperage. I would love to explain frequency. I feel like that would actually go well with some musical content. I created a formula for so we have 12 tone equal temperament, but tonage division. So you can pretty much make your own sonic model using tonality. So like, if you wanted A to equal 120, you would do like 120 times 2 to the power of whatever semitone you want to find, divided by the amount of tone temperaments, I guess, right? And that's really cool, because if you do 24, you get microtones, you get exact microtones, and that's extremely interesting. And I think I used absolute value in the formula too, because you can't have a negative. But that might be a redundancy. I'm not a mathematician, so I don't really know how to write proper equations and where the redundancies fall, but yes, it is absolutely critical that all of that works. So yeah, I would love to talk about that. And there's a good couple ways to get frequency. Frequency is important for getting the Planck formula. You need to have frequency to get the energy of a photon. So that's really interesting to me. And what else? Pop culture. I made that huge long video about Interstellar that got restricted because it had a hum song in it. But yeah, I would love to talk about videos more. But one type of video I will never make is I will never make like a super banal video, right? If I make a video, I want it to be not particularly memorable, not particularly perfect, not particularly anything, but I don't want it to be boring, right? And I don't want to make videos that other people can make really easily. So if I'm amalgamating information, if I'm amalgamating information, if I'm going to make videos on a broader topic, so here's what would likely happen. I would make like a series. If I made history videos and I want to talk about World War I, right, I would talk about probably the prelude, and then I would talk about the major powers, all in separate videos. That way I can stay on topic, right? Because if I'm trying to go from place to place, I'm gonna miss so much. Because if I'm like, okay, so Germany is having a food crisis, and they're having difficulties dealing with the United Kingdom blockade. Germany's having difficulty maintaining administrative control and political control due to the war of Cameroon, and yeah, what the hell's the Tanzania? I think Tanzania is the one in Eastern Africa, but I know that Namibia as well. But yeah, they're having a hard time maintaining administrative control because, you know, naval blockades and struggles with the RAF and just supply issues in general. Like, those are really important, but if I have to talk about colonies, what are the chances I go talk about France's colonies, which there were a lot of, and Britain's colonies, which there were a lot of, and talk about backdoor deals that nations like Portugal had, and Spain, and all these you know, all their internal politics having to mold around the war, and they had to make their own administrative decisions on what to buy, what to sell, how much of their foot to dip in the water when it comes to politics. And I would love to make videos about all those separate things. Like I don't feel like a lot of people are asking, oh, what was Denmark doing during World War One? What was Sweden doing during World War One? Because these countries just, they didn't sit by and do nothing. Germany tried to arm an Irish rebellion, and they were kind of successful because Ireland seceded from the United Kingdom, and they fought their war for independence. But yeah, what did the Netherlands do, right? All of these nations, they were up to something. Switzerland, you can talk about all these nations because they didn't just sit by and do nothing. And then you can talk about the rise of, you know, not pacifism, but anti-war, kind of the call and response to jingoism, where this hyper-militancy came from, where these nations were really hyper-militant. The response to that, when we see like these nations going to a huge war, people are dying of disease, starvation, more disease, you know, people are dying from shotgun blasts. It's fucking gruesome, and with really primitive surgical technology. The invention of the airplane, horse casualties, the invention of tanks, and a variety of really fucked up, weird looking tanks, right? The use of zeppelins. You can talk about so many things, right? And it's so easy to get off task. So I would probably make equipment overview videos. I would talk about these nations. I would talk about their internal politics. I would talk about their electoral system, if they had an electoral system, or I would talk about the autocratic system if they had one of those, right? I would talk about internal revolutions and rebellions. The Russian Civil War would be a great one. If I'm making videos about World War One, I would probably stay away from the Russian Revolution, because the Russian Revolution, it's not really the Russian Revolution, it's Russian revolutions, and these revolutions are done not just militarily, but through reform too. So you have the coalition of whites, you have the Bolsheviks, Mensheviks, you have a spectrum of socialists, and you have a spectrum of conservatives, monarchists, liberals. I don't know if neoliberalism would have existed, but neoliberal ideas definitely were being passed around, and the rise of many figures, so like Leon Trotsky, Joseph Stalin, Mr. Jukashvili, and Vladimir Lenin, that was the big one, and how they made their own sort of adjustments to Lenin's ideology. So, I have been talking about fucking World War One for a long time. So yeah, I would love to make those videos. I would love to make videos about like toxicology. I'd love to make videos about like, what does vitamin A do to your body? What does vitamin B3? What does vitamin B6? What does vitamin B12 do? And I would love to be. I want to be extremely genuine when I'm talking about things like that. So it's like, what does your cortisol levels mean? Like, prolonged exposure to cortisolism. Not cortisolism. Hypercortisolism is Cushing's disease, and if it's prolonged, then it can fuck your life up. Same thing for hypocortisolism, which is Addison's disease, right? So if you need to get that checked, if it's something that lasts, you could be at risk for something, but a stimulation of cortisol levels can, be beneficial, or, monitoring your intake of anything can also be beneficial. So if it's like, if it's like you're orgasming several times a day and you are being predisposed to a bunch of oxytocin, it's like, if you're doing this too much, it's kind of like a stimulant. It's not like a corticosteroid, but it definitely can have adverse effects on your health, right? I want to be integral and honest in those ways. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, you should drink a tonic of all these different vitamins. It's like, I'm not going to accept any supplements. I'm not going to accept any advertisements. I'm not going to accept any of that shit. I'm not going to allow myself to be paid off. I want to be honest, and I want to be integral, unless the amount is over $500. I'm obviously kidding, but yeah, I would love to talk about guitars. I would love to talk about single coils, P90s, humbuckers, things like that. I would love to talk about coding, talk about basic HTML, which is the only coding language I really know except for CSS, but not CSS, or yeah, CSS. What the fuck am I talking? Yeah. So those are the types of videos I want to make. I'm not gonna make videos like, I'm not gonna make like top 10 videos, and I'm going to avoid making videos with like obvious claims. So where it's like, did you guys know that Jeff Buckley's album Grace is really good? No fucking kidding, right? Only a contrarian would be like, oh, Jeff Buckley's album Grace is that good. It's not as good as this LCD Sound System album, and it's not as good as Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. It's not as good as Genesis. What do you know about Phil Collins? Like, can you actually go fuck yourself? Yeah. So I just, I like literature, but I don't have any big literature takeaways. I like Jane Eyre. I like the Iliad. I like the Odyssey. I like classics. I don't like deep classics. not that I don't like them as in I don't enjoy them. There are a lot of Roman plays in like medieval Latin that I have read that I do really like and I really respect, but one, a lot of them are really fragmented, and two, I mostly examine the linguistics instead of what's actually going on. So there's that. So I don't have any grand postulations. That's why I made that Horse Jumper of Love video. I didn't have any like crazy ideas or insane ideas, but I had my own twist. I had my own understanding, and I really like was familiar with the album, and all in the same realm. There's still shit I got wrong. Like I still got some lyrics wrong and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, which is why I need to write scripts. Which is why I need to do videos where I do a lot of research. I never want to break that integrity. That's the word. I never want to break that integrity, right? I want to have sources. I want to, I want to be able to have a logical line of reasoning. And if I'm making educational videos, I want to avoid subjectiveness. Do I think it's a great thing that Poland exists and they got their own nation? Yes. Do I also think that the way Poland was created and implemented was ultimately detrimental because Germany wanted so much of that territory back? Also, yes. I think Poland was in an extremely difficult position, but this is a nuanced topic. I don't want to be in these videos like, yeah, giving Poland Kashubia and or giving Poland parts of Kashubia and Silesia definitely was not a good thing, because that was just an example, but it's really subjective stuff, and it has no place in an educational video. I would love to talk about theism. I would like to talk about atheism. I would love to talk about conceptions that people get wrong, but we have people like Planet Peterson for that, and Aaron Ra, so shout out to those guys because they're fucking cool. But yeah, I would like to talk about some things about theism that I could concur with. I think there's a lot of cultural aspects of theism, so I think that's really interesting, and yeah, all of that stuff would be really cool. But yeah, this is just the kind of last like talky video I'm gonna put out there this year, and yeah, I'll start with something light next year, because this is the last video I'm putting out this year aside from like music. But yeah, I don't know if I'll write a script. I'll probably do like an educational video of some sort. Or I could talk about video games. That'd be really cool. I'd love to talk about like Skyrim and whatnot. I don't think I've made any videos about Skyrim on here. So yeah, that'd be really interesting. That's a game I know a lot of shit about. And yeah. So thank you for listening. Live long and prosper. Oh, I could make Star Trek videos. Ho ho ho. Yeah, I could talk about like ship designs and shit, and talk about like what would be like a real world parallel between like Zephram Cochrane's, was it the Phoenix? One of the whatever ship, and warp drive and all that shit, and like what that would mean for us, and talk about the Romulans, talk about the Klingons, talk about the Vulcans, talk about the Cardassians, talk about the Bajorians, talk about the Borg, talk about the Ferengi. Yeah, do all of those things. Talk about Tasha Yar, my beloved. And that would all work really well. And So thank you. Live long and prosper. Yeah, I don't know what Star Trek character I would be. I'd probably be like Geordie LaForge or something. Yeah, I like LaForge or oh, Doc. What the hell's his name? Yeah, the doctor from the original cast. I'm too tired to remember right now. But yeah, thank you for listening. Live long and prosper.